the trick with sublets, in my opinion, in order so we can link the actual bills to the jobs, the trick is to always put the sublet on the repair order first. So let's use this one as an example. So we have to have a labor. So since let's say this is just a tow-in, this Ford F-150 just was towed in. I have to add something because obviously my sublet labor isn't lit up. So I can either say labor service from list. I actually have one here for tow-in, and it's $0. And I don't even, I don't even have to have a technician assigned to it because, I track my guy's labor time. And that would be 0 anyway, but it would still show up on his productivity worksheet. So let's put that there, highlight the labor, so now we can add that sublet. Now, if I add a sublet from my list, it's always going to say that I don't have it in stock because I don't stock sublets. But we still track them to make sure that there was a receipt put in for this tow bill. And let's say I thought this tow bill was $50, and I'm going to sell it to the customer. I'm going to mark it up. I'm going to put $10 on it, for example. And see, it has a red circle and slash, just like our parts. And what it's saying is, hey, Sabrina, you don't have the receipt for this tow bill in the system, just like I don't have parts in stock if I bought parts from Worldpac or whatever, and I get my red circles and slashes. So once this is here, and really in most cases, Sergio, I have my receipt in front of me, and then when I get the warning that says, hey, you don't have this in stock, means that it doesn't see a vendor receipt linked up to this actual tow bill, right. I'm going to order it. Click next. And then let's see, can't remember who I used. Oh, Ron's, was it? Let's see, Ron's is my towing guy. Okay, and then I just save it. Okay, I just created a parts order form. That's what we do when we exit our ROs for most of our parts. So now, like I said, most cases I've got that hot little receipt in my hand right now. So I'm going to go right back into order parts, and I'm going to highlight Ron's and convert it to a received vendor invoice. And I might look at that and go, oh, you know what? He actually charged me $70 for this tow. So this is telling me to check my math. What does the actual paper vendor invoice say? And in this case, oh yeah, it does say $70. So I can actually go in here and edit this and say, eek, really was $70. And see, that's already reserved for this particular RO number, this 10,270. So then I just go through my regular process, host, and update my inventory and put in my receipt number. Okay, so now when I go back into this RO, first of all, my red circle and slash is gone. And then if I open this up, you can also see my cost is what it really was. So now I'm going to change my selling price because I just put a $10 bill on most of my tow bills. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I have not been doing that at all.
Not at all. It's different. It's tricky. Again, it's treated more like a part, which is kind of unusual.
Right.
And the reason why we do that is, I was showing you yesterday when we were looking at your general ledger. Let's go into this real quick. In fact, let's go ahead and just save it. Let's say it was towed in, whatever, she decided that it was just out of gas and it started up just fine. So let's pay it through. No. Cancel. And let's say she just paid cash. And close. Okay, so now if I go up to the accounting chart of accounts and we look at that 13,300, this is all of our sublets. Here's the $70 that I put on that vendor invoice, 55855 for Ron, because he does my towing. And this is where the system took it out because I sold it on Walter's receipt, or Walter's RO for her Ford. So you see most of these, there's usually go right, you see how these are going right to each other?
Right.
This one, so that's what we are looking for. This 59 obviously is sold down here at the $59.95. If I have like a $50 and a $75 could equal that $125. And occasionally, like we talked yesterday, there are times that you, if you have a tow bill for a warranty job, you're certainly not going to sell that to the customer, right? It's your tow bill, and it's still with the sublet labor. So what happens at the end of the quarter or at the end of your fiscal year, we may have an amount left over in this, this is our asset account, inventory sublet labor. Well, you and I both know that sublet labor isn't a real asset. We do this in MaxxTraxx in order for our shops to be able to keep control of it. So what we do is, like I said, at a regular interval, or of course before we do our taxes, we take whatever's left over in the sublet inventory account, and we do a general journal entry and take it from the asset account of inventory, and we move it to cost of goods sold sublet labor, just like we did yesterday.
Got
So
it.
that's the way it's supposed to work. Okay? But keep in mind, a couple of things. There are some shops that, for example, will sublet out their alignments, but they still will put the alignments on an RO under just regular labor. Let's see about this one. Got a bunch of stuff in here. So, let's say we sublet out an alarm. Maybe somebody fixed an alarm system. We actually could sell it as just a labor, not as an actual sublet, because it kind of looks like we did it ourselves.
Right.
As far as, the legal ramifications of all that, I'm not sure. Usually if I sublet a job, I sublet it right on through. Turning rotors, though, I could see somebody not necessarily always making, turn rotors on a brake job as sublet. I like to keep it that way because it really matches up my costs for that sublet, with what my selling price is for that sublet. Kind of how we also talked about your income and expense statement yesterday. If you have roughly, I don't know, $15,000 in sublet sales for the year, you probably have roughly, $10,000, $12,000 in sublet cost of goods sold for the year. See how that works? And if your sublet cost of goods sold is really high, and maybe even higher than your sales of sublet labor, that could be because some of the actual things that came in as a sublet are actually being sold as a labor. That's how that can happen.
I gotcha.
So a couple other things that I was noticing as I was looking at your data yesterday, windshields. A lot of folks will get a windshield and they'll treat that like a sublet labor because, Safe Like Glass did the work. And I just hung up the phone before the webinar. I was talking with another user. There's a fine line when you sublet work out, whether or not it comes back to you as sublet or whether it comes back to you as a part. And the example that Bob and I were just talking about is a transmission. If you have a transmission job, and you obviously probably don't rebuild your own transmissions either, and somebody gives you a vendor receipt for, let's put one in, because the one that Bob just had, his was, so if you have a vendor, it's Transmeister was the guy,
I know Ted.
and he sells you a transmission, and he'll give you, maybe he'll give you a receipt with $500 sublet labor and a cajillion teeny tiny little parts. So instead of entering in a bunch of teeny tiny little parts and then putting sublet in there for rebuilding transmission, if you have a sublet job that involves parts, what they deliver to you is a finished product. It's not really, some sublet in some small parts, hard parts, soft parts, grease, lube. That comes back as a single part. So let's just say I'm going to put in for generic transmission. Let's see if I have one in here. I do. See this number is 8001? That's kind of a generic part number for me, and that is generic for my rebuilt transmission.
Okay.
So I would select that. Let's say my cost on this one rebuilt transmission was $900, and he may or may not have actually charged me a core charge. Usually they do. They charge you something. Let's just say $250 on this one. Okay. So then that's the bill. And let's say we're going to sell this transmission to this person. Okay, I'm just going to post it. I'll go back, and I actually should have put, let me move this over here, I should have put in here 1150 because I forgot the core. Okay. So now when I go to sell this, I'm selling it as just one single solitary part. Let's just throw it on here for fun. And that core charge, I'm not going to charge to my customer at all. So my cost here, for example, was $900. Let's say my base cost. I'm going to base this on a $900 sale. And I can't use that. Let's use my dealer matrix. So I would actually sell it to the customer for this much. I mean, I know it's kind of not realistic, but, and it'll prompt me. It'll say, hey, is there a core charge? I'm going to say no. There was no deposit charged. Okay, so there's no core. So I'm going to have that $250 in the old, dirty, old, greasy, yucky, used core that I had. And I'm going to get that $250 back from Transmeister, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Okay.
So even stuff that you sublet, if they are actually rebuilding any kind of part, then that sublet is treated just like a part. So it's entered into MaxxTraxx just like a part through restock parts. So any other questions on sublets, on how that works?
Okay. Well, how about paying the sublet company? Like, say, a towing company. You got several tows. So don't you go to pay bills? And, and it should be listed there, correct?
Yeah. So we just did Ron's, right? We just did Ron's towing. So let me scroll down to Ron's. Well, look, I owe Ron a ton of stuff. But here's that $50. Or $70.
Okay,
that would be the $70. So if you treat that sublet kind of like you treat a part, remember, anything that goes onto the vehicle, let's just get out of here for now, anything that goes on the vehicle, and that includes parts, sublets, and really in California we don't do supply charges anymore, but for most other states they still have supply charges. So parts, sublets, and supplies. Anything that walks in your front door from a parts delivery guy that's going to go on a vehicle gets entered through restock parts.
Including the sublets?
Including the sublets. So we click restock parts. Let's, again, input a receive vendor invoice. Let's say Bill's towing. Here's my other towing guy. Okay, let's say we're going to do another, let's say we have a $100 tow from Bill's towing.
And yet we have not put it into the invoice just yet.
Correct. I'm going to show you something that it'll did this on purpose, so I'll get you a warning.
Yeah, that's usually what I do, and for some reason,
right.
Yeah.
If you can, Sergio, we like you to actually put the sublet on the RO first. But let's say I haven't started a ticket yet. I haven't started an RO yet for this car because I don't know whose car this is, but Bill towed it in last night. Taped the keys to their receipt and shoved it through the door, the mail slot, which is what happens.
That's exactly what happens. Yeah, it happens a lot. Yes.
Yeah, and you have no clue. You got to go out to the glove box and look and see whose car is this. So when that happens, we can still choose from our sublet labor list, and it's a tow. And here, let's say like I said, it's going to be $100. And it says, assign item to inventory stock. Well, first of all, the system's going to say, you don't stock sublets, do you, Sabrina? Well, of course it doesn't. Now, if I had a repair order started, I could reserve it by clicking on here and saying, oh, that's right, this goes on, Jonathan. Okay, I could do it that way. But let's say I don't even have an RO started yet. Like I said, I don't even know who the customer is. I'll click OK. I'm going to get a warning. It's going to say, hey, Sabrina, the sublets that you're adding to this purchase order aren't assigned to a repair order or parts or invoice. What do you want to do? So either I could go back and assign it. That's what we were just looking at here, one of these buttons. But, hey, I don't know. Or the repair order or parts invoice is already closed. Let's say it's already been gone, right? We closed out our RO with a red circle and slash, which does happen, not that we want it to. But it does happen, and it's not as big an issue with the sublet labor. I'm going to show you why here in just a minute. Or I can say, I don't want to assign this sublet to repair order or parts invoice. And if I had a warranty tow, it's my fault that something happened to his car, so I had to go tow it back in to take a look at it. Then I don't need to assign it because I may not actually bill out all of my sublet labor. So let's say that's the situation. Okay, so let's say that is what happened on this guy. And then we do finally start an RO for them. Let's just throw one in here, really quick one. Okay, just hit next and just, okay. So what happens is that, I already got the receipt. I already know that, and I have to throw something on here, so I luckily have my blank tow. And then I'm going to highlight it, and then I'm going to add sublets. Now, like I said, I've already restocked that vendor invoice from Bill's Towing. So I am going to put a tow charge on here. I know that it cost me $100 because I just put it in maybe 2 hours ago, and I'm going to now mark it up for let's say $125. Now I'm going to have a red circle and slash on here, and there's really no way, since I've already restocked that vendor invoice. And remember, that's the only item in MaxxTraxx that we cannot edit. Once we close a restock vendor's, invoice, it's done. I can't assign it to anybody. I can't change costs. I can't fix it. Nothing. I'd actually have to credit it back and redo it correctly if I made a mistake. But since I can't link it, it's no big deal. So let's say that again, he's just going to pay for it with just cash. Ignore all this stuff, even though I'd never do that. You know that.
No.
Okay, and I'm not even going to order it because I already know it's in there. I already put it in there. So let's say he paid cash. So why this isn't such a big deal is we're going to go back into accounting, chart of accounts, and go to that sublet account, 13,300.
Right.
Okay, the $100 came in, and we know because we just did it, $100 came out. Now remember, we sold it for $125, but this is only looking at cost. So here's $100 on item on vendor invoice number. This is Bill's Towing, 12344. And then we sold it, and it only took the cost of that sublet, not the $125 that we charged him. It took the cost of that sublet when we closed out this RO that we just did for Brent Foster. The problem is that and you can see in your system, Sergio, there's a lot of these that have been getting billed out correctly. They're just not linked together. The red circle and slash. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do, because that's exactly what happens. You're right.
Exactly. Now, if I were to go back into, historically and say, I'm viewing my closed ones, and this is, I'm going to do date received. Make it easy. Okay, here's Ron. If I went back into Bill's, the bummer about this is I wouldn't know what this was actually for. It's not tied to a PO number. Yeah. And if I did, though, on Ron's, let's look at Ron. Ron's is tied to an actual job. You see that?
Right.
Invoice number, RO number 10,270. And it goes -1, -2, -3, because you could have a ton of vendor invoices for one job, right? So that's another reason why we want to tie these together. So if I ever go back and say, whatever happened to this tow bill? I don't know who it was for. I'd have to actually go pull the piece of paper and see what customer's name was written on it. If a name was written on it. Our tow guys are not that thorough. And then conversely, if I went back into that customer's RO that I just closed out, let's just go again, they paid. Whoops. If I go into Brent Foster's and looked at his RO and looked at this towing charge, I don't know who did it. But if I go back to Waltrid,
but it will still show with a red circle.
Right, it's still showing with the red circle, but look at Waltrid. Waltrid doesn't have a red circle.
Right.
And I put her tow on first, and if I go in, I can see, oh, Ron's towing did the job on this invoice number.
Right.
See this purchase information? So that's kind of slick too. Let's say, I don't know, something was missing out of her Ford, or it got dinged up and she thought maybe the tow company did it, or something like that. You can see why linking them together gives you a lot of really cool information. And the red circle is gone. And
No,
that gives sure.
I totally understand.
Right?
Yeah, I do get it. I totally understand the importance of tying it to to an invoice. However, if you don't, it's not detrimental. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. It's not detrimental as long as you remember to throw it on a bill. I'll tell you, before this feature, I have no shame, though. I would call somebody up and I would say, you know, I forgot to put your tow bill on there, and I would send them a supplemental bill, and I would charge them for the tow. But what's kind of nice is, you know, let's do it the other way around. Let's do some brake rotors. Let's say on this, let's say we're going to do a brake job on this Ford. So what else we got on here? We got a fuel filter. Let's also throw on some brakes. Or actually, we're just going to turn rotors because they're not. Or let's see, do we have something? Well, let's just make it a brake job. So if I do a front brake job on here, and you know, they put some pads on here. Let's just throw on something. Let's see what I got here, just to fool around with brake pads. Do I have some? Yeah, we'll just throw these on here. Okay, so this is our ticket. And then the guys are working on the car, and all of a sudden they're like, oh man, I don't have to put new rotors on here. Let's just go ahead and machine these. So let's say I go to Restock Parts, input my invoice. We actually use Napa to turn our brake rotors. And let's just say add line item, choose from Sublet labor list. Where's my turn rotors? Go at the top. There we go. So I'm going to do 2 of these. $12.50 a piece is my cost. Okay, I can assign it. Remember, it'll bark at me if I don't. It'll say, you know, you sure you want to do this, Sabrina? I'm like, oh, no, I don't. I want to go back. So it'll take me back, and I can say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and reserve these 2 Sublet, you know, turning rotors for, I can't remember which customer I was fooling around with. I think this one, Kevin Goddard, okay? And then click OK. And save it. Get my fake number. Okay, so it's saying, hey, Sabrina, the following parts, it should say /Sublets, were not found on this repair order. Make sure you go back to it. So, oh yeah, RO number 10272. I'm not going to print it because I'm going to remember. Plus, it's handy. It gives me another warning. Hey, Sabrina, you don't have your brake rotors on here. So go back and do it. And say, okay, I will. So when I go back in here and I highlight the labor, I can click, if I click on parts on order, this is the stuff that I did specifically for this job. So now I can right click and say add parts or sublet from order. Parts sublet on order. And there they are. I can select them and put them on. But again, that's because when we went to that restock parts ticket for that sublet labor, Sergio, we had the RO started. That is another way. Oh, check this out. You've chosen to add parts to your invoice that don't have a selling price. What do you want to do? Oh, go back and edit the price. Well, I'm not going to worry about, let's see, quantity and price. Oh, I'm going to sell it. Actually, I'm going to add it. I'm just going to add it anyway. Continue to add the parts. Sorry, I don't mean to confuse you. Now I'm not the selling price, and I'm going to look. Well, if that's my cost, you know what? I'm going to charge $18 per rotor. So it's warning me that I didn't have a price. And check it out. Here's Napa, my vendor invoice number.
Right.
And no red circle. So there's 3 ways to do it. You know, you can. It's so much easier, as you can see, way less rigmarole. It's so much easier if you just put the sublet on there first and get your red circle, and then, you know, order from the pink screen, you know. And I might even put a sublet on here. Let's just for fun, let's throw another one on here. Let's say we're doing drums too for whatever reason, okay? And I don't even have to have a cost, right? Because I don't know it yet. You know, I can always just do this and just create a parts order form just to remind me. Just create it. Yeah, I do get it from Napa. I'm going to create a new one. And it's just going to wait. It's even $0. I have no idea how much Napa is going to charge me for these brake drums. Just save it. So when they do, that's just the fuel filter, when they do get around to delivering those drums after they've been turned,
right,
then you just go back into the parts order form and highlight it. It's $0. It's okay. We're going to convert it. And now I'm going to say, oh, yeah, they charge me 15 bucks a piece. So I can just go back in here and edit it now and check it out. It's already tied to a job. That's the beauty of these parts order forms. If you guys can really get in the habit of, you know, using them often, ties it backwards to the job, and then my number. When I go back into his RO, it says $0, but now I can say, oh, the cost was here. I'm going to charge him 20 bucks a piece. Actually, I'm going to charge him $22 a piece. And I know exactly how much they really charged me. Because I didn't know before. It was $0 before.
Right.
So it helps you just from a service writing perspective.
I got it. Okay, good.
Any other questions on sublets?
No, I think you covered it. That's pretty good.
Oh, good. And I'm going to throw this up on the website so people can reference